Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Paul McCartney's importance to the second half of the 20th century cannot be overstated. With the Beatles, McCartney played a pivotal role in the rise of rock and roll, and the group also had a profound impact on popular culture, popularizing Eastern philosophy in the West and spreading the influence of 1960s counterculture. McCartney's musicianship is arguably the greatest among his former bandmates. Rolling Stone ranked McCartney as the second greatest songwriter of all time, and Bob Dylan, who came first in the rankings, said, "I am in awe of McCartney. He is about the only one I am awe of." His songwriter partner John Lennon said, "Even in the early days, we used to write things separately because Paul was always more advanced than I was." James Taylor said of McCartney's singing, "Paul is like an impressionist painter. The pieces of his music are so elementary, yet the overall thing is so sophisticated. He's such a precise and controlled singer." Overall, McCartney might be the most admired man in the world of music, but his life has not always been easy. It has been a lot and sometimes painful journey for the lad from Liverpool, with no shortage of personal losses. Here is the tragic real-life story of Paul McCartney. According to Britannica, James Paul McCartney was born on June 18, 1942 in Liverpool, England, to James and Mary McCartney. His mother worked as a midwife, while his father was the leader of the jazz group called the Jim Max Jazz Band and worked at the Liverpool Cotton Exchange. It was through his father that Paul acquired his passion for music. In 1956, Paul's life irreversibly changed when his mother passed away from breast cancer. The death inspired the Beatles song Let It Be and may have sparked the lyrics to Yesterday. In an interview with Stephen Colbert, Paul McCartney discussed how he initially didn't think losing his mother influenced his music, but realized her influence on his career later in his life. He also spoke about how he and John Lennon connected through their love of music and losing their mother as teenagers, as Lennon lost his mother when he was 17, not long after meeting Paul. Later in life, Paul McCartney would experience further loss as a result of breast cancer when his wife Linda passed away from the disease. After Stuart Sutcliffe, the Beatles' original bass player, left the group to focus on other artistic ventures, the remaining members found themselves in a bind. According to Ultimate Classic Rock, after Sutcliffe left the band in 1960, the band attempted to find a permanent replacement in Chas Newby. However, Newby didn't wish to stay long-term with the band, and Paul McCartney soon realized he would have to take on the role. It was like, oh, we have not got a bass player, and everyone sort of turned around and looked at me. I was a bit lumbered with it, really. I was like, well, it would better be you then. I don't think you would have caught John doing it," he said. McCartney joined the band as the lead guitar player but moved to rhythm guitar because of his limitations as a lead. McCartney then became the pianist after his guitar became inoperable. Finally, he accepted his position as the band bassist. It might not have been his first choice of instrument, but he made the most of the situation. Rolling Stone ranked Paul McCartney at number 9 on its list of 50 great bassists of all time. In the band's early days, John Lennon was understood to be the leader of the Beatles. However, by the middle of the 1960s, Paul McCartney would take the reins. While the band would find continued success under McCartney's leadership, the shift of power led to the band members growing more distant from each other, according to Far Out. The origins of this came in 1964 when McCartney broke away from the pair's collaborative songwriting relationship and wrote Can't Buy Me Love, which took the A-side on his band's next release. Lennon reacted by writing A Hard Day's Night and most of the songs on the album of the same name. This song versus Some Dynamic will continue over the rest of the decade. McCartney would write Yesterday and Lennon would follow with Norwegian Wood. Lennon would write Strawberry Fields Forever and McCartney would follow with Penny Lane. McCartney has said this competition was a great way for us to keep each other on our toes, but according to Far Out, on occasion Lennon knows. In his book Revolution in the Head, The Beatles Records and the 60s, Ian Diamond writes, Lennon must have sensed that his era of dominance over the band's output was over. From now on, his partner would be in the ascendant, not only as a songwriter, but also as the instrumentalist, arranger, producer, and de facto musical director of the Beatles. There is a segment of the population that has been convinced that in 1966, Paul McCartney died and was replaced by a look-alike. Ultimate Classic Rock explained that the myth is that while in the middle of recording Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, McCartney perished in a car crash. Instead of ending the band or continuing with a new member or as a trio, the surviving members found a look-alike and soldiered on. Rolling Stone reports that the rumor started when a mystery caller told radio DJ Russ Gibb to play the White Album backwards, saying that he would hear messages including Turn Me On, Dead Man, and John Lennon saying I buried Paul. Of course, McCartney did not die in a car accident and is alive today, but fans have found evidence in album covers, song lyrics, music videos, and elsewhere. The Abbey Road cover cover was even interpreted as a funeral procession with McCartney as a corpse. Life magazine sent reporters to find McCartney on his Scottish farm, and Rolling Stone notes that after throwing a bucket of water on them, McCartney agreed to an interview and photos to try to end the story. Didn't work. McCartney, if it is really him, was still discussing the rumor decades later, including on the 2009 appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman. By the end of the 1960s, the Beatles were operating under a cloud of tension and resentment. Their manager Brian Epstein had died suddenly in 1967, and without him the group lacked guidance and a figure to act as arbiter in their creative disagreement. The ending came on September 20, 1969, according to Far Out, despite the pleading of the group's new business manager, Alan Klein, not to say anything. John Lennon told Paul McCartney and drummer Ringo Starr he was leaving the group. The breakup did not come as a surprise. As People details, the four members had been living largely separate lives, getting married, having babies, and making music outside of the group, especially Lennon and Harrison. McCartney later said, "I must admit, we had known it was coming at some point because of his intense involvement with Yoko. John needed to give space to his and Yoko's thing. The band kept things quiet for a few months until on April 10, 1970, McCartney announced to the public that the band was splitting up, as reported by History." According to You Discover Music, a week after the April 1970 announcement came that the Beatles were no longer working together, Paul McCartney released his self-titled solo debut, and to say McCartney was on his own would be an understatement. The former Beatle had written every song, played every instrument, and worked as a lone producer on the album. Today it is considered one of his best work. But at that time, critics had mixed feelings about McCartney. His next effort, Ram, met the same fate. Today, Ultimate Classic Rock places Ram as McCartney's second best post-Beatles album, but in 1971 it was another failure on McCartney's part, with Pitchfork describing it as loathed by contemporary critics. Third time's a charm? Perhaps not. Wildlife was McCartney's third effort and first with his new band Wing. Unlike the first two albums, Wildlife didn't see a re-evaluation years later. Rolling Stone called it flaccid musically and impotent lyrically, trivial and unaffecting, and it is still considered one of the McCartney's weakest works today. According to biography, 1967 photographer Linda Eastman got a chance to work with the most popular group of the era, the Beatles. Eastman was no stranger to celebrities, having worked on photo shoots with Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, and the Grateful Dead. But while working with the Beatles, Eastwood caught the eye of Paul McCartney and the two fell head over heels in the love. The couple married on March 12, 1969 and had 3 children, Mary, Stella, and James, in addition to raising a child from Linda's previous marriage, Heather. Linda and Paul McCartney formed the band Wings in the 1970s and toured while raising their children. Linda continued to work as a photographer and was an advocate for vegetarianism and animal rights. Unfortunately, in 1995, Linda was diagnosed with breast cancer, the same disease that took Paul McCartney's mother would take Linda McCartney on April 17, 1998. Paul McCartney talked to the BBC about his experiences with breast cancer. "We had no idea that my mum had died of because no one talked about it. The worst thing about that was everyone was very stoic. Everyone kept a stiff upper lip, and then one evening you would hear my dad crying in the next room. He said that he was much more open about his own grief for his wife, saying I think I cried for about a year on and off." After the passing of Linda McCartney, Paul McCartney married moral and media personality Heather Mills. According to biography, this drew criticism from Paul's daughter Stella McCartney, who had mixed feelings about Mills and her father's decision. The union led to a daughter named Beatrice. Unfortunately, after only 6 years of marriage, Paul and Mills divorced, and the drama was played out in the British tabloids. Mills also accused her ex-husband of abusing his first wife, Linda McCartney. Stella McCartney, Paul, and Linda's daughter spoke out against the accusation and even questioned her father for marrying Mills. Both former partners denied each other's claims, and the divorce was finalized in 2008, with Mills receiving just $30 million after questioning $150 million. She reportedly said that she was very pleased with the outcome. The judge in the case said that Mills was a less than impressive witness and that her evidence was not just inconsistent and inaccurate but also less than candid. Mills said that the press was unreasonably critical and overlooked her 20-plus years of charity. In 2011, Paul married Nancy Shevell, and the pair have been together ever since. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.